These two nerds accidentally invent time travel and use it to become richer than Elon Musk. Remember when we all loved that guy? So we start off in a garage turned office. They say many of the biggest companies started in a garage, so this might be a good omen. But this voice we're hearing doesn't sound like a very good omen. I don't know, the voice is just a little depressing and off-putting. And no, I'm not talking about my own voice. The voice is talking about the engineers in this office. He says the guys are meticulous, methodical, clever, but they also had lazy days and days full of mistakes. Relatable. I can relate with the latter part. The earlier part, not so much. After his speech, we see four guys, Aaron, Abe, Philip, and Robert, all sitting around a dining table arguing about work as they put some stuff into a package and seal it. After some time, Philip and Robert leave and Aaron and Abe get talking. Abe thinks they don't need Philip and Robert for what they want to do. Aaron is not so sure. As they're arguing, Aaron's wife, who had been doing some cleaning the entire night, joins them and talks about their daughter who needs a bath. The next day, the guys are in the garage talking about work. I can hear a lot of science words, but I don't understand a single thing they're saying because I never paid attention in science class. They keep doing work stuff all day. I can tell they're trying to build something, and they're taking some parts from their car and even the refrigerator. Man, whatever you're building, it better be worth it. Anyway, the four guys just keep building and building, and at night when Philip and Robert leave, Abe and Aaron just continue doing more building and testing. Very early the next morning, Aaron comes to get Abe at his house, and they go off to continue from where they left off last night. Apparently, Aaron had found a way to stabilize this thing. Big breakthrough. They now leave the garage, lock it up, and agree to keep quiet about this whole thing. No one says a word about any of this to Philip or Robert. After they reach that agreement, they go out to get steak. They're brainstorming on what to do now. Of course, the number one thing is getting funding, and their last hope for that is Thomas Granger, the father to Abe's girlfriend, Rachel. So Abe would throw parties every now and then just to get Thomas to come over to the house and try to sell their idea to him. Birthdays, anniversaries, holidays, even irrelevant project launches. Got parties thrown for them all for this purpose. And Thomas would just come to please his daughter who was only there to please Abe. But each time Thomas would leave earlier than the guys would have loved. We now see Abe go out to meet Aaron on a public bench, and the look on his face makes me feel like this entire conversation is about to have some really huge consequences on both their lives. And it does. It will, in fact, turn out to have the biggest consequences you could imagine. But all that happens later. For now, Abe tells Aaron to ditch work and do a few things he'll ask him to do without complaining. In return, he'll show him the most important thing any living organism has ever witnessed. That's right, goth anime biddies. Of course, Aaron agrees and Abe goes ahead to show him some really sciencey stuff. He even takes him to a lab, but Aaron says he could have just shown him a picture. Abe says he wanted him to believe it. He said some guy thinks it's a joke. We see the guy and somehow they manage to convince him to help him. So the boys just keep working. They use their watch to do some testing and keep making discoveries. They take a break and go out to the little basketball court outside the garage. And a little idea pops up. They need to make a bigger box, one a human can fit into. They now go out to get a drink and are trying to figure out how to build a bigger box. Aaron says they should also look for a place to put it, where it won't disturb anyone and no one can just go and mess with it. In layman's terms, get out of my garage. But while he's saying that, Abe just hands him a pair of binoculars and asks him to look at something. What does Aaron see? A man walking into a building. Wait a goddamn minute. Is that Abe? What's going on here? Not too long after, Abe and Aaron walk into the building and into one of the storage units. They get in there and just sit on the floor. A few moments later, they're back out and you can see that Aaron is still bedazzled. He tells Abe not to do it again and not to tell anyone about it. Now, for those of you who don't understand what just happened here, let me break it down for you in less sciencey terms. So that box these guys have been trying to build is basically a time machine. So Abe builds a box big enough to accommodate a human and enters into it. You know, to test it. He transports himself 6 hours into his past. Before entering into the box, Abe made sure to sit alone in a hotel room so as not to interact with the outside world. So he enters the box, which he kept at a self-storage facility, waits there for 6 hours, which means he goes back 6 hours into the past. Immediately he gets out of the box. He goes straight to Aaron and explains everything to him, and then takes him to that open field, where they can see Abe from the past going into the storage facility. You get it now, don't you? If you still don't, please just pretend like you do so we can move on. Now remember, Aaron told Abe not to try this again. Did you really think he would not? In fact, it's Aaron himself that initiates it next time. The curiosity almost ate him up. He couldn't even sleep, so he decides to run the exact same test Abe ran. He calls in sick at work, drops his daughter off at school, and zooms off to the storage facility where he meets Abe. They go into the storage room together and first tighten the box out to secure the leaks. There's always leaks, Abe says. At 8:30 a.m., they set the timer for 15 minutes and leave. They go to a hotel and shut themselves out from the world. No phones, no TVs, no radios, no communication with the outside world, basically. They didn't want to take a chance running into someone they knew, or seeing something on TV that could affect anything, you know? So they just played board games all day, ate, and threw papers into the bin. Sounds like my average day. At 2:30 p.m., exactly 6 hours after they left the facility, they leave the hotel room, go to gather some knowledge about stock trades, which they'll use later, and then head back to the storage facility. Just don't buy Bitcoin. Aaron reads some instruction from a paper and they start taking off their shirts. Ho-ho. Then boom, they get in and wear their oxygen masks. It was hard at first and they were a little anxious, but they later settled in and slept off. Reminds me of my first time. Abe wakes up first and is obviously doing a lot better than Aaron, who wakes up a few moments later. He manages to get himself together and they both leave. They make same-day stock trades with the information they gathered from before, and it works like a treat. They head back to the storage facility facility and watch themselves go in through their binoculars. It was a really good day. They're now unwinding at Aaron's house, and Abe is asking Aaron's wife what she'd do if she basically lacked nothing. She said she'd do something constructive, while Aaron just wants to go and punch his boss in the nose. Based. Abe is surprised that he said that because Aaron had always been one to defend his boss, but Aaron explained that it's not like he really wants to do it. He just wants to know how it feels, you know? So it would be perfect if there was a way he could punch his boss just to know how it feels, and then go back in time and tell himself not to do it. Now this would have just been normal everyday banter talk, if these guys hadn't just already built a time machine. Now that the idea is in the air, it's very much a possibility. Aaron can actually realistically do that, but Abe tells him not to, you know, because of the possible paradoxes it could create. Anyway, it's a new day and Aaron is battling with how he's going to break the news about their breakthrough to his wife. Abe is actually surprised that he hadn't already. He thought Aaron would have told her the moment he told him, but Aaron says it's a little more complicated than that. Aaron is also flirting with the idea of building a bigger box, maybe one the size of a room that can fit more than one person at a time. Meanwhile, Abe is just thinking about telling Robert and Philip. Aaron says no way. He can give them whatever they want. Patent rights on everything they've been working on in the last 2 years. The equipment, even his garage and his truck. He's ready to give everything up to make sure they don't find out. Anyway, the guys go on to do a few more days of testing in their box, and on one of those days, Abe notices that Aaron is bleeding from his ear. The next day, Philip and Robert come into the garage where they meet Abe. They're a little suspicious that Aaron always says he has to spray the garage when they actually never see anything apart from geckos, but they don't give it too much thought. As they're there talking, Robert mentions that Rachel's ex-boyfriend walked into his birthday party with a shotgun, and that somehow causes an argument between Abe and Aaron later that night. The next day, they're in the hotel room just throwing a ball at each other, and Abe mentions something I actually never thought about. So the storage facility guy sees them come into the facility every day, but never sees them leave, because, you know, that's where they time travel. That must be freaking him out, man. Also, the hotel receptionist sees two guys come into a hotel room together every day. Definitely they must be thinking something. Anyway, as they're just saying random stuff and throwing the ball to each other, in the room, Aaron's phone rings. This wasn't a part of the plan. They weren't supposed to have phones with them here, but Abe says he can take it. It's from his wife. Famous last words. They then go out and do their regular time travel routine and head back home when they're rewatching a live game they watched earlier. While they're on the couch, Aaron drops the line of the entire movie. Hey, are you hungry? I haven't eaten since later this afternoon. That's a really good line, isn't it? Later that night, neither of them can sleep and they meet up and head straight to the box at around 2 a.m. On their way, they see Thomas Granger sitting in a car outside Aaron's house. Aaron swears he saw him earlier in the day and he looked cleanly shaven, ready to go out with his wife, but now he looks unshaven. Of course, it's freaking them out. I, for one, don't mind a little facial hair. So Abe immediately calls Rachel and asks her for her dad's number. She calls it out to him and he calls Thomas ASAP. As he's on the phone, Aaron gets out of the car and chases Thomas, who runs and then eventually falls into a comatose state in his backyard. Aaron's working theory is that Thomas entered into the box at some point in the future, and that caused some serious timeline-altering consequences. So they head back to the storage facility where Abe asks Aaron if he was planning on talking to Thomas about the time machine at some point. He says no. Abe himself says he can't think of any reason why he'd tell anybody, except maybe an emergency. They're now trying to figure out what Thomas could have changed, but they're making no progress with that at all. Meanwhile, there's a comatose Thomas Granger in the guest bedroom. While they're here arguing and trying to figure out the next step to take, Abe gets an idea. He takes some more oxygen tanks and more supplies than usually needed to the self-storage facility, but he heads to another room, a room where he kept a secret failsafe box, one that he built and kept running since before the experiment began. Then Abe from the future goes to sedate the original Abe so as to stop him from conducting the initial time travel experiment in the first place. Future Abe now goes to meet original Aaron at the bench to try and dissuade him from the whole thing, but he would only find out that future Aaron was faster than him and got there much earlier with pre-recordings from past conversations. He also finds out that future Aaron had brought a disassembled third failsafe box 4 days back with his own body. If all these things I've been saying is doing your head in, then you're not alone, because that's the same thing happening with future Abe right now. As he finds out about all these things, he staggers and faints from a combination of shock and fatigue. But original Abe and original Aaron know that they have to stop this, so they hatch a plan. Oh, by the way, both men have been bleeding from their ears for some time now. The guys now travel back in time together and they're trying to stop the gunman who crashed Robert's party the other time from attacking Rachel. Abe thinks there are other ways they can do this, but Aaron insists this is the only way. Every other way leaves open ends, but this way ensures that the gunman is arrested and put in jail. While they're talking, they find out that their handwriting has gotten worse over time. Anyway, they now head over to the party and Aaron manages to stop the gunman after a lot of hard work doing some reverse engineering, and he instantly becomes a local hero. But Aaron is not really interested in reveling in his new hero status, because the next thing we see is him trying to convince Abe to travel with him, to just disappear and go where nobody knows them. Aaron wants to go somewhere far away so he can continue to do what they've been doing, but on a much bigger and much more profitable stage, and in a way that won't affect the people around them. Abe, on the other hand, says he prefers to remain here and stop the original experiment from happening. There's no convincing the other person, so they just agree to disagree and go their separate ways. Abe tells Aaron to leave and never come back. Now we see Aaron talking to some French-speaking guys in a warehouse, of course with an interpreter. Can you guess what he's trying to do? He's trying to build a box the size of an entire warehouse. Wow, Aaron. Wow. And that's the end of the movie. But I thought you'd like to know this little piece of information. Shane Carruth, the guy who plays Aaron, is the director, writer, producer, editor, and really just the all in on all of this movie. The cast was basically just Shane's family and friends. And oh, he studied physics in order to make this movie. So you're totally not dumb for getting confused at many points in the movie. You're just not Albert Einstein. And I mean, you can live with that, can't you? I know I can. Moral of the story? I have no idea.